Hello everyone and welcome back to our city Lakewood. Today we're going to be doing what we should have done almost 7 months ago at this point and add an airport from the Airports DLC. This episode will be the basic design and layout of our airport, and the next episode will be polishing and adding features. We've got a large area of land near the water that I had always intended on using for an airport but just never got around to it. And now with the Airports DLC we can design and build our own airport for Lakewood. The Airports DLC is unsurprisingly very similar to both the Industries and Parklife DLC, where in order to create our airport, we must first create a district for it to be in. Now, as for the size of our airport, it's going to be significantly larger than what I had originally planned. Of course, I've been doing this city what seems like forever, and the original plan was to have an international airport. And then after that, the plan changed to a metropolitan airport. This metropolitan airport came out with the Sunset Harbour DLC, which was previously the largest airport that you could build. And honestly, taking a look at both of these airports, there is absolutely nothing wrong with either of them. They both look really good, I think, and they would work just fine in any city. However, we do have the Airports DLC, so I think it makes sense for us to create our own. The Airport District tool is a little bit different than the other district tools that we're used to in that it physically changes the landscape that we're painting it on. The previous district tools are more cosmetic than anything and used to mark out an area, whereas the Airport District tool will automatically flatten and remove any of the vegetation in the area that you're painting it on. So that's pretty good because that will reduce some of the work that we'll have to do to prepare for our airport. And I'm going to paint quite a large area. As I mentioned at the beginning, these airports, they can be quite big. So we're going to start out by painting quite a large area, and then we can always go back and reduce the size of our district after the airport has been created. And now, as you can see, the Airport District tool is not perfect. It doesn't quite remove all of the vegetation. Of course, we can go back and manually remove these trees with the bulldozer, but we can always go back to the District tool, same Airport District tool, and just paint over those areas again. A little bit more difficult to see once the district has already been created. But if you have a general idea of where those trees used to be, you could just kind of run your mouse over them, and then that should remove the trees for you. We're going to jam pack our airport with as many features as we can that came with the Airports DLC. So that will include small, medium, and large aircraft, jet fuel tank farms, some parked aircraft and hangars. The only thing we're really not going to have is a cargo airport. We do have the cargo airport off to the side over here, which I think is working just fine for our city. So we're going to stick to just passenger aircraft for this airport at least. Now, just like everything else in the city, I have done this ahead of time. So I'm going to start by making some seemingly random measurements with a 2-lane road. I want to make sure I get my placement at least relatively correct so that in the end it actually works out the way I want it to. So we're going to start by going close to the train tracks up at the top. We're going to use a 2-lane road to measure down approximately $2,800 from there. And then off from the perimeter over here, approximately perpendicular to that road, we're going to go $2,000 in. So that's going to be the start of approximately where I'm going to have the first concourse for our airport. That will be kind of along this same, parallel to the same road that we have right here coming from the perimeter of our city. We'll go into the transport tab, into the airport area tab, and then we have a few options for us as for the style of our airport. We have the classic airport, we have a modern airport, and of course the ultra modern airport. We're going to stick to the modern airport. We're going to start with a 2-story airport terminal. We'll place that in, and that should unlock level 1 for our airport for us, which will unlock some of the other buildings that we can use to create our airport. I will close the airport for now. I'll wait till everything is fairly set up before we open it up for passenger traffic. That will open up for us the airport concourse. Concourse itself, as I said, will be parallel to that road coming from the perimeter. We'll go across at a cost of $8,690. This one's going to be a little bit more exact than the 2-lane local roads that I had as measurement guides, just to make sure that I have kind of the shape that I want for the airport. From here, we'll come across one large unit, so approximately cost of $1,100 and 150 degrees from that angle that we started at. And then I will move our airport terminal, connect it up there. And we'll come out again, another unit, $1,100 off of there. And then we're going to have another concourse that's coming from that end. It's going to go out the side here. It's going to be a cost of $10,230. So it looks like we're going to have to extend our airport district just a little bit. Now the second concourse, I want to have it parallel to our first concourse. I want to make some measuring guides for that as well. I would really like to just extend a 2-lane road across here, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that. And the road guidelines aren't really appearing very well on this side. So we'll come down just from the side over here instead, make a road parallel to that, come all the way across. So we'll use this 2-lane road at the bottom and make our second concourse parallel to that 2-lane road instead. Should hopefully have the road guidelines show up for us. Good. Can be parallel to that at a cost of, what did I say, 10,230. Exactly like that. And you can see the angle where we started is also 150 degrees. That'll be our second concourse. And for now, we can delete all these 2-lane road guidelines that I have in here. You can see our fire department, the helicopters are quite busy. There must be a fire somewhere in the city, right here at our transport hub. We got lots of helicopters. I think my my fire budget is far and above higher than any other budget in the city. So lots of helicopters coming to get some water for that. We're finally going to get to be able to use our 6-lane road that's been crossing the train tracks here. It's been so long I forget when I put this in. I had always intended on using it as a connection to the rest of the city for the area that I was going to be building out here near the ocean. So instead, it's going to become the connection to our airport. So with this, we're going to just remove some of the excess that we have on the outside. Then go back and change this into a ramp. And then not long after that, we are going to transition this into a 4-lane road. So our 4-lane road is going to connect up to our airport terminal just at the end here. I think we're going to come up to about 2.5 grid squares away from where that is. Just come up like this. Connect to it almost exactly as it is right now. Of course, we obviously don't want to have quite a sharp corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that and connect up to it using our curved lane tool here. And I think that's going to work pretty good. And now as for lane mathematics coming through here, you can see that we have 3 lanes going into 2. Then 2 lanes going into 3 is not quite as bad, but the 3 lanes going into 2 may cause some traffic issues. We're going to have coming off of this some 2-lane roads. Now you can see our 3 lanes have turned into 2 through lanes and 1 right-hand turn lane to go to the 2-lane road off to the side. So that'll work perfectly for our lane mathematics. And these 2-lane roads that are coming off here will become the perimeter roads that go around the airport, around the outside edge, kind of like service roads, I guess you can say. It will have access to the hangars and the jet fuel tank terminals that I'll have along the outside edge as well. We're going to want to keep track of the roads going through our terminal here. We already have 2 roads that came as part of our airport terminal here. They are 1-way roads going from right to left. So we want to kind of follow that pattern, which is actually a pretty good idea because that will help with the flow of traffic going through the area. Very similar to our industrial areas where we have a kind of a flow of traffic going from one side to the other to hopefully avoid any sort of traffic issues that might arise. So with the airport terminal, we have a upper and a lower terminal. So we're going to have to connect both of them up. I don't know if you can see it or not. It looks like There we go. The bottom is arrivals and the top is departures. That's pretty cool. I'm just going to make sure that everything is connected so that our airport can be used by all of our citizens, both arriving and departing from the city. We'll take our 2-lane road and come out at a cost of 280 at the bottom. We'll do the same on the other side here. Now I know I'm not using directional roads right now. I'm going to go ahead afterwards and upgrade them. But for now, just to plan everything out, I'm going to stick with the 2-lane roads. Come back at a cost of 640 at the bottom. And then connect straight up to our 4-lane road here. Now we're also going to make this look a little bit nicer. We're going to change some of these and make them a little bit more curved at the corners. I'm just cutting across like that to cut these road segments in half so I don't delete quite as much. I'm going to go about 120 units up from that corner again and cut it. So we're going to curve these segments. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side here. You can see if I try and delete this large segment of road, it's going to ask me to delete the whole thing, which is not what I want to do. Probably want to have an area. I probably want to have a segment that's the same length as this one here. So cost of 280. Come up from that. And then we'll just bring it across to cut both sides. Move all that extra road and then go through and use our curved lane tool. Connect everything up. Okay, we can go ahead and upgrade everything. So when you're upgrading your 2-lane roads into directional roads, the direction that it automatically applies when you do that is the direction that you originally drew that lane in. So these ones down here at the bottom right-hand corner, I went from this corner to the 4-lane road, and that's why they were originally going the opposite direction. But if you just right-click on PC, at least anyway, I'm not really sure what the control would be on console, but if you just right-click a road, it will change the direction for you. Now, as for the upper roads here, we are going to do something a little bit similar. I'm going to try and make it a little bit more curvy than this bottom road here. I want to have kind of a square bottom with a round outside edge, I think is what I'm going to try and do, at least anyway. We'll do the same thing, and we're going to start from the top. Of course, this one is elevated, so we'll have to come out a little bit from that. Then we also have our concourse here, so we have to be aware of that possibly being a little bit of an interference for us. So maybe we'll start from here instead. So with this node right here, we'll go to the left, do 3 units, then up 700 and make it 640 actually. And then from here, we can use our curved lane tool to connect that up. So try and replicate that on the other side. 3 units across and then $640. Not really sure how curvy this is going to end up being, but I think it'll look kind of cool to have the upper and lower roads. And then I want to try and bring this down to the ground level. We're going to have some hotels and things like that eventually connected up to these roads that are surrounding our departure and arrival terminals. I want to make sure that we actually have our zoning grid show up for us to be able to use that. So we'll come from here. We don't want to have our intersection too close to the one that I've already created for the lower arrival terminal. I think it's the arrivals at the bottom. Yes, arrivals at the bottom. So the lower arrivals and the upper departures. Let's just use our curved lane tool and see what that's going to look like connecting up to it as it is. Okay, I think that actually looks pretty cool. Again, a little bit more curvy maybe than the bottom lanes, but not too much. And this gives us lots of these zoning grids to put in hotels and other possibly even zoned commercial buildings we can put in the area. I think we'll kind of leave it as is. We'll go ahead and we will make our roads directional. I've hooked up the utilities to our airport, so now we have power and water coming in. I've also removed the two Firewatch towers that we had on the far outside edge over here. Eventually, we're going to have some forested land around the outside perimeter, so we will replace those Firewatch towers. But for now, I've just deleted them to get them out of the way. So now it's time, I think we put in some runways so we can start getting some planes coming to our airport. And right at the beginning here, we only have access to the small aircraft stand, which means only small aircraft are going to be able to come to our airport. Eventually at level 2, we will get a medium aircraft stand, and then level 3, we will get a large aircraft stand, and those correspond to the sizes of the aircraft that can come to our airport. Now, as for leveling up our airport, just like the Parklife DLC, we require a number of visitors as well as an attraction score to the airport itself. We can increase the attraction score with some of the other items that are in the list here. So we have our hotels as well as our parked planes and hangars and things like that. But for now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll start with our aircraft stands as well as the runways and get some planes flying in here. So I'm going to start off with a number of these aircraft stands. I'm going to just put 3 here for right now. And then just as a spacing guide, I'm going to put 3 more, but I will be deleting them. So those 3 will be used as a gap between the original 3. Go ahead and delete those. And continue along here. So we'll have 6 of these small aircraft stands available to us. It looks like I didn't extend the water as far as I should have. So we'll just run that right below the concourse. Just do that on the other side as well. And hook everything up. Electricity should be good. And then now we can start getting in our taxiways and then the runway itself. These taxiways basically act as the road network for our planes and allow them to travel in between the plane stands and the runways themselves. Now we don't have to be quite as picky with our plane road network as we do with the road network in our city. The principles of road hierarchy aren't really much of a thing, but we still have to have something that's functional. So to start, I've connected the plane stands together, and then we're going to connect these to a little bit of a larger taxiway network once we get the runway put in. As for the runway itself, I want to have that running parallel to the original concourse that we put in, but unfortunately the road guideline that's part of that concourse isn't quite long enough for where I want to put our runway. So again, we're going to use some 2-lane roads as road guides. We're going to come along parallel to the concourse up at the top. We're going to go 3 grid units away and then down 1,400 units from that. And so this is where I want to have our runway. But again, unfortunately, the road guidelines that are part of this new guide road aren't quite long enough for where I want to start putting the runway. We're going to put in a second guide road that's going to run parallel to where I want to put in the runway. So we'll come up 1 grid square unit from there, which will line up with the end of this guide road over here. We're going to start about here and go across 5,100 units. So it's just going to be poking a little bit past where we have the end of our concourse over here. We can remove these guide roads now and then continue along with our taxiway network. You may have noticed that there are 2 sets of arrows that are part of our runway. We have the white arrows going down the center and then the blue arrows off to the side. The white arrows are showing us the direction of travel for our planes when they are landing and departing our airport. And the blue arrows are showing us the direction of travel for our planes when they leave the runway and go to the taxiway network. So for planes landing in Lakewood, they're going to come from the right-hand side and go towards the left and depart the airport near the bottom. We're going to go $240 down towards there, and then we're going to bring it across because we want to have our planes coming back towards the plane stands up at the top. I'm going to temporarily put in another taxiway off to the side here. But before I connect everything together to the plane stands, I want to put in the taxiway for the planes that are going to be departing the airport, just so I can get the distance between the taxiways up here correct. So planes that are going to be departing Lakewood, they're going to enter the runway near the back. Again, we're going to come up 240 units and then across. And then instead of going up 240, we're going to shrink that a little bit and come up 210. And then we're going to connect everything together. Now, obviously, the directions aren't quite right now. We'll just give it a second and we'll upgrade that. But we'll connect our plane stands to the runway here. Pardon me, the taxiway. We'll just connect those up. So. And then we'll go ahead and upgrade everything just to make sure we got the directions right. Now this is going to be very similar to the idea behind our industrial road network, where basically we have a loop for the planes to follow. So planes, once they land, they will depart near the bottom of the runway and across towards the plane stands. And then planes that are departing will leave the plane stands and enter near the back end over here. Essentially, the planes will never cross paths and never interfere with one another. Although we haven't turned on our airport yet, I'm sure you've seen some of the airplanes starting to leave the airport, so I think it's a good idea for us to turn everything on. We'll go back to our terminal. We will go and we will click the on button up at the top left-hand corner. We're also going to go to the airport area info window and take a look and see what we need. So far we've only had 14 passengers. Our attractiveness is 0, so we're going to have to do a little bit of work on that. Compared to the other DLCs, as I mentioned earlier, the Industries and Parklife, which this is very similar to, leveling up your airport is significantly quicker and easier than that. So we are at level 1, only 3 levels total, and we'll take a look while we're here, take a look at some of our policies. One of the ones I'd like to turn on is Great Maintenance. It adds a land value bonus to the whole airport. I'm not exactly sure what that means for us in general. I guess it makes the city more attractive maybe. So we'll put that on. Car rentals, I'm going to leave that off. Eventually this is going to be hooked up to the public transportation network of Lakewood. So I want to try and avoid adding yet more cars to the road network if I can. And then last but not least, up at the top, we have hotel discounts. Adds a bonus of 200 points to the to the airport's attractiveness rating. So we will turn that on despite not having any hotels right now. We're going to put some in here in not too long. And you can see that adds an attractiveness of 200 to the airport. So if we go back to our info window, we are already at attractiveness of 200 for level 1. We just have to wait for the passenger count. So as I said, it's really not much of anything to level this up. So that'll be pretty quick for us to get 500 passengers going through the airport. And I'm just going to pause it real quick. I'd like to make a quick adjustment to the taxiway here. I'm going to just delete those ones from the corner. Then I'm going to bring it across directly and connect those two. For no real reason other than I think it'll look a little bit better. Try and reduce some of the squareness of our taxiway network. We got lots of square corners around the edges and also leading into the runway. So just having a little bit of a change here I think will make it look a little bit more interesting. While we wait for our passenger count to increase, we can always work on the attractiveness level of the airport itself. Right now, 200 out of 200, it's exactly how much we need to go from level 1 to level 2. But eventually, once we get to level 2, we're going to have a bit more than 200 to get to level 3. So right now, we have 200 purely from the hotel discounts policy that we applied earlier. Of course, there are a number of other buildings available to us now to be able to increase the attractiveness of the airport. So while we're just kind of hanging around, I think we should put some of those in so that we can hopefully, once we get to level 2, have close to or maybe even enough attractiveness to get to level 3. And again, just have to be waiting for the passenger count to increase. So right now we have, it's pretty much the functional area of the airport with these small aircraft stands and the runway. And then the other items that we're going to be adding, if we take a look in here in our airports tab, we have a control tower, which is quite important, but it doesn't actually serve a purpose for our airport. It has no function. The control tower is purely decorative. We don't even really have to put one in if we don't want to. but I think it makes sense for our airport to have a control tower. I'm going to put one right there in the middle in between the two groups of small aircraft stands. And it looks like it's not even a unique building. So if you wanted to, you could put in a number of control towers. We may put another one down further over here once we put in the medium and large aircraft stands. But for now, we will just stick with the one control tower over here. Other buildings that we have available to us to increase the attractiveness are the small hangars, the budget airport hotels, as well as the small parked planes. Now, unfortunately, the hangars and the small parked planes, they are purely decorative. They serve no purpose other than just looking kind of cool. It would be, I think, better to have the airplanes going in between the hangars and the airport stands. You know, obviously, planes have to go for maintenance at some point. So that's kind of why we're going to put in some of these hangars. Unfortunately, though, they're going to be purely decorative and not really serve much of a purpose. So I'm just going to pause the game real quick and extend our taxiway a little bit. I want to have basically a secondary taxiway network to the backside over here. I'd like to imagine that if our planes were to need to go for maintenance, they could just as easily travel along this other taxiway and go into these hangars and that sort of stuff. So we're gonna pretend that that it actually has a function, but in reality, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. So we're gonna extend the taxiway just a little bit past our concourse. There is another building that we're going to be adding eventually. If I can find it in here, let me scroll through. This one here, Airport Lounge. It does add on to the concourse, so I want to make sure I don't have the taxiway too close to the concourse to have the lounges right up against the taxiway as we go along here. So let's just redo that little section here of our taxiway. Like so. I think that'll give us enough room to put our airport lounges just along the back side of our concourse here. And then we will cross up like so, and then back across. Oh, not quite lined up. Here we go. Let's try that again. Instead, I'll come up from this side over here and then just adjust the direction afterwards. Okay, again, so no real purpose other than decorative right now. In the event that a plane were to need maintenance, it could just as easily leave the airport stands or leave the runway wherever it's coming from and come up across here and go to the hangars that we're going to put out across this upper taxiway here. And then to return, they would just come back down here. Now, unfortunately, because we have directional arrows here, they can't just go to the airport stands here, or airplane stands, pardon me. Instead, they would have to travel along here and along the runway and then back around. So they'd have to take the long way around, but it's not the end of the world if they were to have to do that. We'll take a couple airport hangars and just put them along the upper edge here. Nothing too crazy. I don't know if they need any utilities. I don't think so. Doesn't look like it. Maybe we'll... Oh, like they do. I spoke too soon. So we'll run some utilities just along the runway here. Maybe we'll hook up to the concourse. Just like this. And there we go. Level 2 for our airport. So let's see what we got here. Large hangar, luxury airport hotel. We got a larger modern terminal. We're going to keep with the terminal that we already have right here. And then we got some concourse hubs, fuel stations, the airport lounge, our airline lounge that we talked about, medium park planes, and the medium aircraft stand. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we'll just hold off for now. We'll finish up our decorating along the outside edge, and then we'll get to the level 2 buildings that we just unlocked. Taking a look at the airport info area real quick, we can see that we need an attractiveness score of 1000. So that's 5 times what we had already earlier, and also 10 times the passenger count. So before it was only 500, and now it's 5,000. So it'll take a little bit longer for us to increase our passenger count. Of course, our small planes, they only have a capacity of 50, whereas the medium planes and the large planes, have progressively more capacity for passengers. So once we get our medium aircraft stands in and start getting some medium aircrafts into the city, the passenger count will increase at a quicker rate, and it really won't take very long for us to get enough passengers to get to level 3. So a couple other things I'd like to put along the edge here. Let's actually put one more aircraft hangar. And I'm going to stick to the small hangars for now. Once we put in the medium aircraft stand and the large aircraft stands over here, they're going to be disconnected from this area. This area is going to be solely for the small aircraft. So we're going to stick with the small hangars and the small park planes on this side and do medium and large on the other side over here. Put a couple of these small parked planes in between our hangars, and then we'll put in another set of hangars just on the side there. And these, let me just take a look. Where is it? Inside here. Each hangar is an attractiveness of 40, and these small park planes are an attractiveness of 20. So not a whole lot. It's going to take quite a number of these to get our attractiveness up to, what was it, 1,000? Yeah, 1,000. So once we get some of these lounges in too and things like that, it really it adds up pretty quick, and you may have to add a little bit extra. So in order to get to level 3, we might have to add a little bit extra over here. And then once we get to level 3 and we put in the decorations that we want, we can go back and we can delete some of the little bit extra to get our attractiveness up. But we'll just see how it goes. Okay, lounges. I was just talking about that, so might as well throw in a few. So we'll put one across from where we have our control tower, then one across from each of the airport stands for these small aircraft. We'll leave it like that. And then we'll put a few more of these park planes on the outside edge, and maybe a couple more hangars. Why not? So maybe we'll put one hangar. Put 3 planes, and then one more hangar just on the end here. Like that, and we'll get our utilities hooked up for these new hangars on the side here. I haven't seen it, and I haven't really done a whole lot of staring at the airport to see if it does anything. But if we were to eventually put in our aviation fuel station, as far as I know, there is no refueling of the planes at the airport stands. There's no trucks that go back and forth in between. So again, it's again a purely decorative and a purely kind of something that stays within the footprint of the building. There's no trucks that leaves or do anything like that. And so I think it makes sense for our hangars along the outside edge here to have a road that connects them. So we did add this road right here. This was part of our 6-lane to 4-lane lane mathematics, a little bit of adjustment here where we have these 2-lane roads off to the side. So these will be our perimeter roads that go along the outside edge of our airport. I'd like to put one in around here near our hangars. I think it makes sense. If you've ever been to an airport, there's a surprising amount of things around the outside edge of the airport, all sorts of different businesses and companies and aviation related buildings. So they need to have access to all of these buildings. So it makes sense for us to have a road outside on the outside edge here that's not related to the actual taking off and landing of the planes and the runway and all that stuff. It's connected but separate. So we'll just connect up here pretty casually right now. I like to just connect it as it is, and then we can always go back and smooth out those corners, make it look a little bit nicer. If we were to smooth out this corner, it's a little bit tight right here. So we'll just go back and delete that. Send this out a little bit further. I'm going to pause it real quick because it looks like we're going to have to delete one of those power lines to be able to connect that road. So we'll just do that. Reconnect everything. Like so. And then go ahead and smooth out those two corners. There we go. And then we might as well do this corner while we're at it. And also to cheat a little bit, if you'll notice that the small park planes, their footprint is not quite as big as the footprint of the hangar. So we do have this little gap right on the end here, this little grassy patch. Again, it's not terrible, but what we can always do, we go into our landscaping menu and we go to our pedestrian pathways. We pick a pavement path. We can lay one of those just in here. I'm going to turn off all of the snaps just to get it as close to the corner as I can. Close as it's going to let me. Go. And attach it like this. And then there are some of these little gaps here, but from a distance, you can't tell. So it looks like it's a solid pavement area or solid paved area. Do that same thing over across here. Connect everything up. And I think that looks a little bit better. Let's check out our progress. There we go. Attractiveness at 900 out of 1,000. Passenger count 1,600 out of 1,700 now out of 5,000. We are making progress for sure. The right-hand side of our airport is going to have a very similar design to what we have on the left-hand side, where it's going to have two groups of 3 of the aircraft stands. But instead of having the same aircraft stands in each group, one group of them will be the medium aircraft stands, and the other group will be the large aircraft stands once we unlock them at level 3. Now, as for the runway itself, it's going to be parallel to the runway that we already have. Unfortunately, with the airports DLC as it is, you can't have your runways crossing one another. Obviously, it doesn't have to be parallel to each other. You can have it at any angle you want as long as they don't cross. But to save ourselves a little bit of time and especially a little bit of space, we're going to just have them running parallel to one another. And obviously, I'm not an aircraft or an airport expert by any means, but I do know larger aircraft usually means longer runways. So we have a cost of $5,100 for our current runway for the small aircraft, and we're going to double that to $10,200 for the runway for our medium and large aircrafts. Now it looks like though that I'm going to have to extend the airport district just a little bit towards the shore. And as you can see, the automatic leveling of the airport district tool, it's not great along the shore here. It leads to some weird terrain patterns. So we'll go back and we'll fix that in the end. I don't think I have to extend it any further, but in case I do, I don't want to have to fix it and then fix it again afterwards. So save ourselves a little bit of time to do that. And just like the first runway, we want to make sure that we have our spacing correct and we don't have to go back and redo it. So we're going to put in some guide roads and use some guide roads and road guidelines and all that sort of stuff to try and place our second runway where we want it. I'm going to put in the taxiway right now just so that we can get the spacing correct. We're going to have it running parallel to the taxiway that we already have. Just to check the distance here, cost of $240. That is like that. Now, unfortunately, the runways and the taxiways, they aren't quite like regular roads where you can just connect segments of roads together. I mean, taxiways are pretty close, but you can't really tack on a runway to a pre-existing taxiway. You have to put in the runway first and then connect the taxiways to it. So that leads to our guide roads and road guidelines. So our second runway should be right here. I'm going to put a guide road just at the end right here. Then delete that little segment of taxiway. And ideally, I would like to have our runways running in the same direction. So that means I have to draw the runway from right to left rather than left to right. But just as a guide for myself, I'm going to go left to right at first, just so I know where it's going to end and what's going to happen. So this should be the end of our runway, and we'll put another little road guide right here. So I'll delete this runway as it is, and then I'll be able to start it right here and run it across, and it should be in the right direction, and it should be the right length that I'd like it to be. And then of course, now I don't know the distance between the two. So let's just very quick make an adjustment here. So what did I say? 240, and we'll run another lane just like here, and then delete that again. There we go. Now we can use the road guidelines from this road here for a distance up from the guide road that we have at the bottom. So like so, just where the two cross, and we'll actually switch to the runway and go from there. So 10,200, now they're lined up and everything's looking pretty good. So we can delete our guide roads and get started on the taxiways. So we're going to have, like I said, a very similar design, but we're going to have both the medium and large aircraft coming from this one runway. So if I can, I'd like to kind of keep them a little bit separate. We'll have our medium aircraft coming up from the top, and then we'll have our large aircraft going down towards the bottom. I'll just temporarily put that in for now. Obviously, we don't have our large aircraft stands unlocked yet. I think we're getting pretty close. Let's just check. We still need a 100 attractiveness score, and we're almost halfway in our passenger count. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the medium aircraft, they hold more people than the small aircraft. So once we get that all set up, we should be generating more passengers for our airport. Medium aircraft stands will go in. Like I said, we'll put in a group of 3. And then just like the other side, we will connect everything together. And what I'd like to do is run another road just below the aircraft stands that we have here. But unfortunately, the large aircraft stands are not exactly the same size as our medium aircraft stands. I don't know if you can really tell right now as it is, but the medium ones are even a little bit larger than the small aircraft stands up at the top. So if we were to run a taxiway down at the bottom here, we need to make sure that the spacing between the taxiway up at the top here is a little bit longer so that it will be able to accompany the large aircraft stands once we put it in. We may have to do some tweaking once we get the large aircraft stands in, but for now, we'll put it like this. I think that looks a little bit cool, having them kind of side by side and then kind of splitting off. Then we'll connect our taxiways to the aircraft stands. See if we can get this going. Don't want to have it quite straight across like that. So we'll just go back and we'll delete this. Maybe have the nodes spaced out a little bit better. We go. That's not terrible. Not quite 90 degrees, but darn close. So we will change the directions, make sure we got that all lined up. And then as for re-entering the runway, we're going to have to cross back on ourselves like so. Then I'll change the direction. There, that should work. And I'm going to leave this bottom taxiway as it is right now. We want to make sure that we get our large aircraft stands in before we finish up these taxiways. Maybe I'll delete this extra segment right here. So now all we have to do is get the last 100 points of attractiveness for our airport. So we'll throw in some of these airport lounges across from our medium aircraft stands. Each of those lounges has an attractiveness of 60 for the airport. So now we're over our 1,000 that we need to get to level 3. And then now we just have to wait for our passenger count. We have 3,132 out of 5,000. So we're pretty darn close to getting to that 5,000. Now that we have the medium aircraft stands in, it really shouldn't take too long for us to get to level 3. Our small passenger planes have a passenger count of 50. And the medium passenger planes have a capacity of 200. So that's 4 times the amount of people who can take the medium aircraft from our airport. So it really won't take very long at all. I'd like to go ahead and do some of the decorating around the outside, but I'm not 100% set in stone on what I want to do with the taxiways and the runway here. I want to make sure that we unlock the large aircraft stands, get to level 3 before we do any of the decorating around the outside edge here. What I think I'll do, it's not going to take very long, so I'm just going to sit tight and let the game run for a few minutes and then come back and see if we're at level 3. That might turn out to be a little bit of a disappointing time lapse. It was literally less than 5 minutes. I turned the game up to 3 speed and came back, and it wasn't really that long at all before we got to level 3. So here we are, level 3. Here is the congratulations window. And here's what we've unlocked: an aviation museum, parked cargo planes, large planes, train station, and the airport cargo terminal, airline headquarters building, large aircraft stand, and the cargo aircraft stand. So the cargo stuff we're not going to do anything with. We may put a parked cargo plane just off to the side just because it'll look a little bit different than what we've already got. But like I said before, we're going to stick with the cargo airport that we've already got. I'm going to just turn that back to 1 times speed. And there we go. 5,065 out of 5,000. We're not making any money apparently. I think we have to put in an airline maybe to make sales from tickets. We'll get to that here in a minute. It's not really that big of a deal. We got lots of money as it is. So our large aircraft stands, we're going to just put them at the far end of our concourse over here. Go back into the menu and see if we can find these large aircraft stands. Where are they? Go. We'll just put 3 right near the end. Okay, as you can see, actually noticeably larger than the medium aircraft stands, and then obviously quite a bit larger than the small aircraft stands over on the left. We'll get our taxiways hooked up. I'm going to make a slight adjustment here. I'm going to pause it real quick. I'm going to delete that segment, and then I'm going to cross them and attach them together a little bit shorter of a distance together. Actually, even a little bit shorter than that. Let's make a larger adjustment than just changing the taxiways. I'm going to move these aircraft stands over a little bit just to give ourselves a little bit more room. Hopefully this doesn't screw up our airport too much. That. Get rid of those segments of our taxiway. It looks like actually, you know what? I'm not even going to connect these 2 areas together, so our spacing is not going to matter. So let's get these all hooked up again. So, and then we'll cross this about halfway in between the set of medium aircraft stands and the large aircraft stand, and we'll hook that back up. Gonna resume the game. I'm going to assume that this aircraft is just going to slide over and hook up to the new position for the aircraft stand. Move over our airline lounges like that. And then we'll do something very similar for our large aircraft stands off to the side. So I want to kind of have them self-contained, each of the different sizes of the aircraft. So we do have our small aircraft, and then our medium aircraft, and then our large aircraft. A medium and large will share the same runway, but they'll have independent taxiways if I can figure something out here. So this is a little bit different than the design that I have off to the side, which is actually a pretty cool thing. I'm happy with doing something different. Just because I have something off to the side here doesn't mean that it is set in stone. We're going to have our taxiway exit, or pardon me, this will be our taxiway entrance for our large aircraft when they are ready to return. We'll upgrade that just so we don't get our directions mixed up. And then we want to make sure that we have our spacing correct over here. We will have the taxiway going from the left side of the runway, running even a little bit further below the taxiway that's returning to the right side of the airport. We'll come across like so. Again, directions aren't correct right now. We'll just adjust that in a minute. There, I think that's looking pretty cool. So let's run our taxiways over here again. Our spacing. I don't want to have, just like up here, I don't want to have our taxiway crossing too close to the end of the runway. So unfortunately though, it looks like with the spacing that we have, it's gonna have to be kind of close. That's not the end of the world. This. And then a taxiway coming towards our aircraft stands. Have it going off like this. Our taxiway is hooked up to the aircraft stands. Change our directions. And that should be everything. So we take a look back at what we have. We have our larger lower runway here. When medium aircraft land, they'll go from right to left, and they will exit the runway up at the top and go towards the medium aircraft stands here. Then they will go back towards the runway from the right-hand side and then take off. Our large aircraft, when they land, they will depart the runway near the bottom, come up from the right-hand side towards the aircraft stands here, and then they will return to the runway here as it is. So the medium and large aircraft will be independent other than the runway itself, which they will share. We'll just take a quick look at one of these large aircraft. These have a passenger count of 350 compared to 200 with the medium and 50 with the small aircraft. I'm not really 100% sure if I like how this turned out. It looks a little bit weird. What we could always do is we could always just connect these together. Something like that, and then completely remove one or both of these and just have one taxiway going to the end of the airport. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If this is maybe a little bit too weird, we can kind of keep it as it is or make adjustments. Again, nothing is really set in stone. We can pretty much do whatever we want. That's the cool part about City Skylines. Now as for the decorating, this episode is running quite long, so we're going to do that pretty quick. It's going to be something very similar to what we have on the left-hand side, where we're just going to have yet another taxiway coming off at the end and going to the back side of our airport. We want to make sure we have our spacing correct again, so before we do that, we'll put in some more of these airport lounges on the back side of the concourse that's there. So this time, I think I'm going to put in 3. That, and while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to change our control tower. I'm going to put in, instead of sticking with the modern control tower, I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go with the ultra modern control tower, and we're going to put it just in the middle here, right across from where we have our airport terminal. I'm going to remove the original control tower that we have. So now it's more centralized. It has a better view, I think, of both of the runways. Rather than 2 independent control towers for each set of airplane stands, we'll have one central control tower for everything. And I'd like to think that our city of Lakewood is spending a little bit more money on our control tower so that we can make sure that the passengers for our airport are safe. Okay, taxiways along the outside edge, now that we have our airport lounges in. Again, directions, it's not going to be correct right off the bat. Do something like this. an adjustment. So again, any planes that need to go towards hangars up at the top, they'll follow this this taxiway that's going around the outside edge. Make a quick adjustment to all these. And it doesn't really matter, I guess. Technically, the planes are never actually going to be using these taxiways. We could have left it as it is. We would have just had to deal with the little icon floating there, which is not the end of the world, but might as well sort of make it correct anyway. We'll have a couple of the large hangars along the outside edge. And then some of the large parked planes. We'll throw in a couple of these cargo planes as well, like I mentioned before, just to make it look a little bit different. Obviously, our aviation industry in Lakewood can service cargo planes. Just because we don't have a cargo airport doesn't mean we can't work on the cargo planes themselves. Let's do 4. Let's have a odd amount of these large hangars. We'll do a set of 3. Then a set of 2 on this side. We'll extend our airport district a little bit further. And then put in a couple more hangars. I noticed that there are no medium aircraft hangars. I guess technically the large hangars can fit any size of aircraft. So I guess the large hangars will be used for the medium aircraft. We'll throw in a couple of these medium park planes as well. Looks like we have a couple other options. So looks like there's 3 medium park planes and 2 of the large and 2 of the cargo airplanes that we can put in. Of course, we have our utilities to worry about, so we'll come up from the concourse again, just like the other side, and run it below the taxiways here. And our water and sewage treatment for Lakewood is nearing the yellow area, so we're pretty soon we're going to have to make an adjustment, turn on some more of our pumps and sewage treatment plants just to level that out. But we're not getting any warning signs yet, so we won't bother. And we'll put in our road along the outside edge again. I'm going to turn off some of our road guidelines and try and get that a little bit closer to the runway if I can. Move out the corner. And then connect our perimeter road to the outside road here. Instead of connecting to the end, like I did on the other side, not quite right, make an adjustment. Right, I guess that's the way it's going to be. We're going to maybe see if we can cheat again a little bit here and put in a pavement pathway. No, it doesn't even look like we've done that. I guess the spacing that I've put these hangars along is not quite in line with the spacing of the nodes for the roads. It's not the end of the world, so we'll just leave it as it is. Of course, we can probably put in some pavement pathways here, but we'd have to put in a couple lines, so I'll decide whether or not I'd like to do that. If not, we'll maybe put in some trees or something like that along there. That might look pretty cool. But yeah, we don't have to connect our perimeter road right to the end here. So what we'll do instead is we'll just come down like this, and then we'll use the curve road tool and connect up to here. Why not? Make it look a little bit different. Unfortunately, that will be it for this episode. I've been doing some editing in between recording segments, and we're going to be just over an hour for this episode with the outro that I'm doing now. We've got a functional airport with small, medium, and large aircraft, and some of the outside area is complete with aircraft hangars and parked planes, but clearly there's enough content for a second episode. where we'll be finishing off Lakewood International with some features from the Airports DLC, but also some other airport related items that I think we should be adding. Thank you all very much for watching this episode. I appreciate the continued support that I have received on the channel despite not uploading in almost 8 months at this point. I do still read comments that I receive and know that some of you have been waiting for a new episode of Lakewood. If you enjoyed watching, don't hesitate to subscribe if you haven't already for some more City Skylines content in the future, and I'll see everyone in the next episode.